Welcome to Bergen Community College. I'm Eric Friedman. I'm the president here and a former English major, and very proud of that, and former graduate student in the humanities. I'm incredibly honored that the New Jersey Council for the Humanities has chosen this wonderful college as the host site for this very important convening. I'd like to welcome today's featured guests, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, Dr. Aaron Fichtner, President of the Council. I should have just said friend and colleague. New Jersey Council for the Humanities Executive Director, Dr. Karen Berkowitz. And his Modern Language Association Executive Director, Dr. Paula Krebs here. Paula Krebs, welcome. Welcome to, I'm so pleased to see so many of my colleagues and former colleagues. Ran into some people this morning, so awesome. And I'm proud that some of my current colleagues, Dean Adam Goodell and Dr. Sarah Schertz, are participating and leading some of today's sessions, facilitating today as well. As Bergen's president since January 21, which was high COVID time, I can say with confidence that my abilities to lead New Jersey's largest community college are directly correlated to my studies in the humanities. What I learned, what I was exposed to, what I continue to study and engage with in literary studies, philosophy, history, and the arts have made me what I am today. This is something clear and indisputable that I tell my two boys. Don't believe what you read about the inability to find work if you have a background in the humanities. There has, however, been, this is part of why we're here, a sea change since the time I was an English major learning about iambic pentameter. And there is an enrollment crisis in the humanities. And as Heather Perfetti, the president of Middle States, our accreditor, said on a call this week, political sentiments about higher education are currently less than positive. Part of why we're here. Nowhere is the crisis more profound than in the humanities, but also so many new opportunities and pathways. In an article entitled, and I'm sure many people in this room saw it, "The End of the English Major," in a recent issue of The New Yorker, Nathan Heller reports that from 15 years ago to the start of the pandemic, the number of Harvard English majors reportedly declined by about 3/4. In 2020, there were fewer than 60 at a college of more than 7,000. Heller writes that from 2012 to 2020, the number of graduated humanities majors at Ohio State's, and that is a big college, at Ohio State's main campus fell by 46% in 8 years. Tufts lost nearly 50% of its humanities majors, and Boston University lost 42%. These stats are really hard for me to see and read. My life has been so enriched by what I have experienced through the humanities. Why don't others want to follow this path? I knew it was happening, but I hadn't looked this closely at the data, and I thank the New Yorker for publishing that widely. So why go to college at all? Why not just go to a training institute that requires no general education, or what we have begun to call at Bergen essential learning? Thank you, Peter DeLugos, for that recommendation. Why even develop and stretch one's intellect? Why think about a life of meaning and consequence? Why engage with cultural institutions? Why reflect or examine one's life Socratically at all? Why read and discuss works of literature, philosophy, religious studies, history? Why indeed? I strongly believe, and this is not original, that the humanities provide the very foundation and structure for thinking, for civic and cultural engagement, for lives of meaning, and expanding our capabilities and capacities for joy, while also teaching deep lessons about the darker sides of life. The humanities require us to think, to review, to analyze, to synthesize. If we want to be instrumental about it, these qualities matter in all lines of work, all. At a time in our world when the lines between fact and fiction have blurred, we look to the humanities to ground us in rational thought and the ability to think critically. It's critical that we convey the value of the humanities to our students and communities. We can't take it for granted that somebody is doing that for us. The messaging, the marketing doesn't seem like the fit for what we do all the time, but it's really super important. We all benefit from an education rooted in the humanities. Democracy depends on it. In Self and Soul, A Defense of Ideals, Mark Edmondson writes that it's no secret culture in the West has become progressively more practical, materially oriented, and skeptical. He goes on to argue in defense of ideals, the heroic, the contemplative, the compassionate. While it may seem odd that we must justify the humanities as relevant, that we must re-enlighten students over and over again, as well as each other, I'm not the only one arguing that the humanities are as important as ever. It's not always the easy choice to engage with something that is a little bit difficult, to read, to reflect, to go out of one's way to be with art, to support culture, to muse on ideals. Near the end of his last book, Harold Bloom wrote that readers shun difficulty because they are so desperately distracted. We are all desperately distracted in a million ways, but it has fallen on us to message out about the value of the humanities in new and creative ways. It is on us to ensure the spirit of a liberal arts education continues. Events like today go a long way in doing so. Thank you for being here, and please know how supportive I am, and I hope to see all of you again. Thank you. Almost forgot, it is my task to introduce Aaron Fichtner, the president of the New Jersey Council of Community Colleges. And thank you for this wonderful denim notebook.
Thank you, President Friedman, for your leadership here at Bergen Community College and for really kicking off this important convening with the right tone. I'm Aaron Fichtner. I'm president of the Council of County Colleges and could not be more excited to be partnering with the Council on the Humanities for this important conversation. When I got this job about 5 years ago, Mike Klein, who is here somewhere, told me that I needed to meet Karin Berkowitz, and he connected the two of us, and we began talking about what our two organizations could do together, our shared interest in making sure that we are preparing students at all ages and all levels to live in a complex society. And from those conversations, we led to this partnership. So Mike, thank you for that connection. I want to thank our partners at the Council on the Humanities for working with us, with believing in the powerful role that community colleges play, the central role that you all play in educating over 170,000 New Jerseyans, giving them a path to a better life, to further education. As President Friedman said, the important role that you play in helping people to understand and to live and to thrive in meaningful ways in an incredibly complex and changing world. So the conversation that we are having today, that you will have today, is a critically important one for the future of community colleges, and I would argue for the future of our state in so many ways, given your impact. Some of you may have been with us at Middlesex College before the pandemic for our discussion of essential skills, another key partnership, or perhaps the first big partnership between our councils. And at that event, we explored the important role that the humanities play in helping prepare students with the critical thinking, problem-solving, communication skills that are so critical to people's ability to thrive and to have family-supporting careers, but to also have meaningful lives. And as a history major in college, I can attest to what Eric said. Not a day goes by that I don't put into practice the work that I learned in the history classroom, in appreciation of all of those who came before us and all of the history, both good and bad, in our country, the communications, problem solving, writing, research skills. It's critical, and so I stand before you as committed to this work and committed to making sure that the Council of County Colleges continues to partner with all of you, with our 18 colleges, to strengthen and support the critical role that you play in the humanities. We live in a rapidly changing world and society, and it is often hard for all of us to make sense of all of the things that are going on, but I know at its core, the work of the humanities is asking the right questions, is helping to educate and prepare people to live in that complex world. And I thank you for all that you do, and thank you for being here to be part of this critically important conversation. While the world is changing, the world of higher education in New Jersey is changing as well, and in many ways we're at a crossroads. And this conversation that you are starting today, or I should say continuing today, I know will help to shape our directions at the Council as we work to make sure that we have a strong and thriving network of 18 community colleges that help prepare people at all ages for the economic opportunities and to live in that complex world. So I thank you for being here today and for your commitment. I think almost all of our 18 community colleges are represented today here in person or online. When we work together and come together and support each other, we can do incredibly great things. And so I am so excited to see all of you here committed to working together to find ways to build bridges and connections between and among our colleges. And we are committed to this work in the long haul at the Council. This work is too important. The work you do at the core of general education, core of our colleges, is critically important. The Council will continue to listen and to work with all of you to support these conversations. I know that what may come out of this, and I hope what will come out of this, are some tangible ideas on what we do next. How do we continue this vital work? How do we make sure that the humanities are thriving and that they are the true center of our community colleges? So I ask all of you to join in this effort, to give us suggestions, tangible, for how we can continue to support your work, how we can continue to support the vital role of the humanities in our community colleges. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your willingness to come together and join in this important conversation. I look forward to working with all of you over the years to come to make sure that we have a strong and thriving humanities in our community colleges, make sure that we are fulfilling our important role in the state. So thank you all, and thank you to our partners at the Council for the Humanities. And it is my honor now to introduce Karin Berkowitz, Dr. Karin Berkowitz, the Executive Director of the Council. Karin, thank you for your leadership. Thank you, and Valerie, and your entire team for putting on this incredible event. And thank you, most importantly, for believing in the vital role of community colleges in the humanities. We often feel forgotten in community colleges, and both of you, Valerie and Karin, have made this strong commitment, and the board of the Council, to really understand the true role of community colleges and how important we are collectively in building a brighter future for all of us here in New Jersey. So Karin, thank you, and look forward to an incredible day of conversation and a much, much deeper and longer partnership between our organizations. So, Karin.
Well, thank you all very much for being here this morning. Thank you, Aaron, for that kind introduction. Thank you, President Friedman, for welcoming us to your beautiful campus. I wish that all presidents welcomed people with such fulsome praise for the humanities. I'm going to probably ask my high schooler to watch the live stream of that event later so that he can hear you say the things that you did about students and the decisions that they have in front of them and the place that the humanities can play in their education. I think it's really important. So thank you for that. Thank you all for taking a Friday morning during what I know is probably one of the busiest months of the year to be here with us. It's a real pleasure to bring this group together. We feel so strongly about the work that you all are doing, and it's been, just a real joy to get to know people across your sector. As the sort of interlopers in the community college space today, I want to start by just telling you a little bit about who we are. I think some of you know us well, and some of you probably don't. The New Jersey Council for the Humanities is a 501c3 nonprofit, and it is the statewide partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. So we're not actually a part of the state government and function autonomously. It gives us a really nice opportunity to make sure that we sort of go where we see a need rather than being governed by the forces that are bigger than us in a way that might happen if we were differently contextualized. Our mission at the Council is to explore, cultivate, and champion the public humanities in order to strengthen New Jersey's diverse communities. And that really feels like the point of intersection, I think, with our community colleges. One of the reasons why I think the partnership that Aaron described has been so important to me, certainly in my 4.5 years at the Council, is that I see so much overlap in the missions of your institutions and the mission of our institution. I think you serve New Jersey's diverse populations in a way that almost no other institutions within the educational sector do. And I think that it behooves us, those of us who are devoted to lifelong learning and who are devoted to bringing the humanities to underserved corners of the state, to see you all as the best conduit to doing that work. So we're very, very grateful for this partnership that we've been able to forge with many of you. I would say that, some of you may know us already through our Museum on Main Street program and our Democracy Conversation project, because for us, although we're still sort of learning and building across our partnerships across this sector, you all have been important to us over the last few years, so I hope you know that and you feel that, and you will continue to be important. Those programs were programs that we've built to explore ideas about American democracy, and we felt that our most democratic educational institutions could be central to those conversations. So over the last 2 years or so, we've forged partnerships in the context of those smaller programs, and we will look to continue to do so. We also have a robust grants program that has funded people from some of your institutions. So if you are not aware of what we've been doing, either programmatically or in terms of funding, I would encourage you to check out our website, njhumanities.org, or to talk to any one of us from our 6-person staff. I should also add that 2 of our 6 staff members are community college graduates. So this feels very personal to them. Yeah, we can. And one of those 2 went on to a 4-year institution and said that the best teaching he ever encountered was in that community college context, that he really felt that he was not only well prepared, but that actually the excellence, the pedagogical excellence that he saw in the community college context was unrivaled. So I think that's important to know as well. I don't want to get in the way for very long of the program that I know you all are here to listen to, but I have a lot of thank yous. So I hope you'll bear with me for just a moment. I think it's always not only important, but nice to recognize those people whose efforts allowed something like this to take place. So first, I want to thank the advisory committee that helped us think about the questions that we should put before you today. I'd like you guys to stand, if you could, please. Sarah, Augie, Giuseppe, Nancy, and Ellen's with us remotely. Can we give them all a round of applause? I'd like to thank the National Endowment for the Humanities that provides a lot of the funding for the work that we do. It provides crucial funding for the humanities sector. I'm not sure if Meg Ferris McReynolds is here yet, but she's going to be here at some point today from NEH coming up for this event. So I'd like to thank them for not only their funding, but their support. They care deeply about the community colleges. So I think, we can see that in the long drive that she's willing to make to join us today, that she really cares about this work. They care about this work. So I'd like to thank them. I'd like to thank our partners here at Bergen Community College. I'd like to thank, first of all, President Friedman for welcoming us here, for allowing us to use this campus. Oh. Sarah and Adam, could you guys stand up for just a minute? Sarah's and Adam. So Sarah and Adam really sort of played the point person role on this campus between the two of them, and Adam did a lot of this for us. They made sure that we had everything that we needed for today. They helped us continue to think about important people to bring to the table, important questions to ask. They've been invaluable partners as we've put together this event. I'd like to thank from the staff here at Bergen, their IT and media team, back of the room over there. Can we? They've been here since before 7 o'clock getting this room set up. I think this room is beautiful. I've never had a space that's run so well and so smoothly. So let's also thank the facilities team here at Bergen who made that possible. And then I think the success of any event depends on ample food and beverage. So thank the caterers here who have done a phenomenal job as well. And then I'd like to thank our partners at NJCCC. I'm sorry I told you the list was long, but I'm getting near the end of it. I'd like to thank the NJCCC staff and team for partnering with us in this event. We're really appreciative of you all for consistently coming back to the humanities as central to community colleges and their work. And then finally, I want to thank the NJCH staff who are making this possible, who have made it possible in the months leading up to this event. Joseph is just outside the door. I'm hoping the mic carries far enough that he can hear me, but he's been at the registry. There he is, thank you. Joseph is the newest member of our team and is himself a proud community college grad, and we're delighted to have him on our team. And he's really helped with, especially some of these day of logistics, making sure that everybody is, comfortably situated and has a name tag and all of that. So he's been really, really helpful. And then this day wouldn't have happened without the tireless and thoughtful work of Valerie Pop. Valerie, can you stand up? Y'all are going to hear from her later anyway, but Valerie is NJCH's Director of Strategic Initiatives, and she has both helped to shape the content of today's event and has also made sure that no detail in the event planning went unattended to or unthought of. So I'd like to be sure that as we welcome her to the stage to introduce our keynote, Paula Krebs, we express our appreciation again for all of that hard work. And I think I can speak for Valerie in saying that it's also been immensely rewarding for both of us to have interacted with all of you in the months leading up to this. And we hope that you will continue not only throughout the day, but in the months after this to be in touch with us, tell us what we can do for you, tell us what's going on your campuses. We drive a lot, so we make our way out across the state. So let us know, if you have something going on in the humanities that you think we should show up for. We'd love to be there. So just a a great big thank you then. I'm turning back to the community now as I welcome Valerie to the stage and saying thank you all for joining us. And I'll let Valerie go ahead and introduce our wonderful keynote speaker.
Good morning. That was like the Oscars, Karin. I thought somebody was going to play you off. I'm delighted to see so many faces here, both new and familiar. As Karin said, my name is Valerie Popp, and I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives here at NJCH. It's been such a pleasure to work alongside the rest of my NJCH colleagues, along with NJCCC, and of course, alongside the outstanding Bergen team as we put this convening together over the past couple of months. I'm going to go over some basics for the day before I turn the lectern over to Paula. So, as you can see on the left there's ample food and beverage. Take it throughout the day. We'll have lunch midday. If you need the agenda, it's available online. I've gotten some questions about that, so it's njhumanities.org, and you can find the full agenda for the day, and we will also have the schedule up on the slides as we proceed. If you need anything throughout the course of the day, if you have questions about anything, just come to me, to Karin, to Joseph. Any of us would be happy to help you out with any aspects of the convening. Okay? So I have the great honor today of introducing our keynote speaker, Paula Krebs. Paula is the Executive Director of the Modern Language Association. She administers the programs, governance, and business affairs of the association, which is the largest scholarly organization in the humanities, with 23,000 members from more than 100 countries. Her role includes national advocacy work for the humanities and humanities education. She has administered grants on increasing diversity in doctoral programs in English, preparing doctoral students to teach at access-oriented institutions, and other aspects of language and literature education and research. She is also the current president of the National Humanities Alliance. Dr. Krebs has written on higher education and humanities issues for the Chronicle of Higher Education, Inside Higher Ed, CNN, The Washington Post, Slate, and other publications. And she is the current president, and she holds a doctoral degree in 19th century British literature and culture from Indiana University and a BA in English from LaSalle University. She previously served as English professor and department chair at Wheaton College and dean of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at Bridgewater State University. Last but not least, she is a self-described Jersey girl who is delighted to be returning to the Garden State to share this day with all of you and to offer her thoughts on the current state of the humanities and the enduring and vital place of community colleges in the field. And on a more personal note, I would like to add that I emailed Paula with an invitation to come be the keynote for this day on the morning that the MLA convention began in San Francisco earlier this year. And so when I got out of office, I went, okay, I'm not gonna hear for a while, could be a little bit. And I heard within minutes from Paula. And I think that that speaks volumes about Paula's leadership and about her dedication to community colleges in this field. So, Paula, welcome you to the stage. Thank you for being here.
Great, thanks. I'm so honored to have been invited to do this, and I think it's a real testament to the work the MLA has been doing in recent years to change its reputation, I guess, to expand its reputation, to include all kinds of teaching and research in the humanities and language and literature. And I too see many familiar faces in the crowd, including James Hart from Morris, who chaired our Committee on Community Colleges at the MLA and has been behind a number of our initiatives for community colleges. Every year we have more and more stuff going on at the convention, more and more things between conventions that involve community college, and more work with graduate students to prepare them for careers at community colleges. So this is a particular interest of mine from my days at Bridgewater State, working with the community colleges in our area and across the state of Massachusetts. And again, I thank you so much for this invitation. I want to thank everybody who's already been thanked, so we won't do that again. But I do want to point out that in my role as president of the National Humanities Alliance, I intersect a lot with state humanities councils, and there is no state humanities council as invested in this sector as New Jersey. There is no humanities council on any state or territory in this country that it understands, as well as New Jersey does, the connections between public humanities and community colleges. You're very lucky to have them. So I work from a teleprompter, which sometimes glitches, so I have paper backup, so never fear if I start to panic. Want to share some good news with you today about the humanities, about where they're funded, and the fact that where they're funded, they're thriving. That's important to note. Where the humanities are funded on campuses, where they are supported, they are thriving. Where humanities education responds to student and community needs, it grows. There's no sector better at responding to student needs, as you know, than the community college sector. Community colleges respond to student needs as well as to community needs, whether it's by starting daycare centers on campus or starting supply chain logistics, programs in response to local needs. And I want to talk today about the need for naming. I guess I want to talk about naming the humanities as central as both a student need and a community need, and how to bring those two things together. I'm not going to focus today on New Jersey itself, although I do admire the attention the state gives to community colleges and your students and their need to leave school with a credential for employment. But I want to make sure that what we're talking about is making sure that the humanities are seen as a credential for employment as well. So first I'm going to talk about the national scene for the humanities. And then I'm going to talk about community colleges as part of the national discourse on both work and on the humanities. I'm going to talk about how humanities courses can prepare students for careers, and I hope I'll leave you on a note of optimism. We may have some dips along the way. Let's start with this, which was a story from Community College Daily about a week ago. You may have seen it if you read Community College Daily. Skills, Not Frills was the name of that story. And I think everybody in this room understands what they meant by frills. And that's us. We need to shift the perceptions of the humanities we see in the national media and state legislatures. That the humanities are self-indulgent, are frivolous, are irrelevant. How can we center the humanities in the way we think about higher education, about career preparation, and about national culture? The climate in which the humanities are now working is more hostile than we've seen in my professional lifetime, which goes back a ways. In Florida, HB 999, you've been reading about, allows unprecedented state control of governance on campus, and it's aimed at eliminating exactly what we teach in the humanities, critical thinking. It's aimed at eliminating critical thinking from colleges and universities. It follows that state's Stop Woke Act, which is currently blocked by federal judges pending appeal, and which would restrict discussion of race or gender by barring any discussion that would make people feel guilty or uncomfortable about past wrongs in this country. It's blocked, let me make clear, it's blocked at the higher education level. It's in effect at the K-12 level. In Texas, House Bill 1006 prohibits the funding, promotion, sponsorship, or support of any office of diversity, equity, or inclusion, or any office that supports the goals of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In 2021, Texas passed an anti-critical race theory bill, what they think critical race theory is, which restricted how race, slavery, and history can be taught in public schools. Many state legislators are terrified of their citizens being exposed to information about sexuality, about race, about history. Virginia's children can't read Toni Morrison in school. Tennessee, in addition to banning drag, now has laws like Idaho and Oklahoma against saying in a classroom that racism exists in the US. You cannot say that in a classroom in Idaho, Oklahoma, Tennessee. Politicians who regulate teaching about race, sex, gender, and other divisive concepts do so because they understand the value and the power of the humanities. Let's make no mistake about that. They understand it. That's why they want to regulate it. Classes in literature, history, languages, humanistic social sciences are targeted by the political demagoguery we're seeing in Florida and elsewhere, where the job of education is starting to get spun as simply producing docile workers. Defeat the humanities, critical reading, writing, and thinking, and you're more likely to produce a populace that doesn't challenge norms. That means the humanities are very powerful indeed. We'll come back to that. So let's think about our sense of the humanities expertise we have as MAs, PhDs, graduate students, and align it with the humanities education that we're providing our students. As a trained humanist, you construct arguments about material. You don't look for a single answer to a problem. You don't teach your students to look for the single right answer, though you may want them to follow MLA style. Get that right, okay? In a teaching and learning theory framework, you're a divergent teacher, not a convergent one. You teach your students to use different frameworks, to examine material from a range of different perspectives, to use sources responsibly, and to enter into larger arguments that already exist. You teach them to understand and to tolerate ambiguity. This is central to what we do. These ways of thinking and teaching are cultivated in our fields: language, literature, history, philosophy, religion. And to some politicians, they are seen as dangerous, so they need to be eliminated. But to many employers, right, they're seen as incredibly valuable. Okay? Employers want students who can think and write and make decisions and ask questions and understand things as complicated. So let's keep this in play. We've got, on the one hand, humanities cultivates critical thinking, which is dangerous because it might prompt, like socialism. This comes up, communism, right? On the other hand, humanities cultivates critical thinking, which employers think is really valuable and helps them make a profit. So all right, is socialism? Is it capitalism? Are we the enemy? Are we the friend? It's an oversimplification on both sides, but it's a puzzle to me how those who decry the humanities won't listen to the corporate CEOs who love the humanities. In a climate of continuously declining state support for higher education, community colleges have been feeling the pinch for decades. For all disciplines, President Biden's efforts to secure free community college have stalled. State-by-state efforts are dependent on funding commitments from state legislatures, and they often seem focused on vocational only. Community college faculty members in the humanities, you navigate a complicated landscape. Like your four-year college compatriots, you staff general education courses required of every degree program, including writing courses and intro-level humanities courses of many sorts. You mount upper-level courses for those students who want to go further in the humanities. An associate's degree leading to transfer in the humanities can ground students well in English or history or philosophy or world languages. As a side note, I looked it up. You guys, Bergen offers American Sign Language, Arabic, Chinese, French, German, Hebrew, Irish, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Latin, Russian, and Spanish. Now, you probably don't do it all the time and at all levels, but the fact that that stuff is all on the books here, yay you. Modern Language Association, right? But a credential aimed at workforce preparation rarely has a lot of wiggle room, I understand, for electives. So how do you make the most of the humanities courses that your students can pursue on your campuses? How do you give them the skills and the inclination to pursue further study in the humanities, even careers in the humanities? When I started on this job, one of the first conversations I had at a professional gathering just a few months after I started was with Matt Reed. Raise your hand, Matt. Matt Reed, who's now at the council and on leave from Brookdale. He's been a buddy since his days at Holyoke Community College in Massachusetts when I was at Bridgewater State. So I ran into Matt at a conference, and he congratulated me on the new job. And I said, Matt, what should the MLA be doing for community colleges? And he said, well, first of all, stop sending us Ph.Ds who don't know a damn thing about community colleges. Stop sending us people who don't know, what it is to teach the students we serve, who don't understand the difference between being trained to teach an upper-level literature course at an R1 and teaching an introductory language or composition course at a community college. And I thought, okay. And I knew this, this was just a more extreme version of what I had already seen at Bridgewater State. When I was a dean there, I would interview the job candidates, in humanities and social sciences. And I remember one candidate who was from an Ivy League institution, and I remember saying to her, so what do you anticipate will be the difference between teaching here and teaching the students you taught at unnamed Ivy League institution? And she said, I think I'll probably have to cut my syllabus by about 2/3. And I called the chair and I said, over my dead body, this person thinks that the students at this university are inferior to the students at the university where they are teaching, and doesn't even know enough to ask questions, just comes in with assumptions about what the students can and can't do. I was really appalled, and then I thought, not that candidate's fault. The fault of that candidate's advising at that Ivy League institution. So I approached Mellon, font of all funding for the humanities, that's not NEH, and I said, look, what if the MLA ran intensive summer institutes for training doctoral students to teach at a community college? This was focused on English composition at the first iteration of it. So what if we had these institutes that would both combine the latest pedagogical research in reading and writing, so combining the teaching of writing with the teaching of reading so as to encourage students to read more deeply and want to take more humanities courses. So but not just to train graduate students, to recognize the expertise that exists on what we called access-oriented institution campuses. So colleges that prioritize access over selectivity. So aimed primarily at community colleges, but recognizing that there are plenty of four-year institutions like Bridgewater State whose student body was comparable to community college student body and whose approach to teaching was the same. So instead of just aiming at the doctoral students, We included an equal number of faculty members from community colleges and other access-oriented institutions so that they could learn together about the latest research in pedagogy on reading and writing. What a great model to recognize that, and the doctoral students were so excited to be in the classroom with teaching professionals in the field who could talk about what it's like to be on a campus and who their students were and what barriers they were facing and what advantages they brought to the classroom. The interactions between the two constituencies were really, really valuable. It was, that program has been, we do that regionally. We did one at Princeton last year that perhaps some faculty members from some of your institutions were involved in, and hopefully you'll hire some people who were trained at that institute. But we're committed to extending that now to languages. We've got some money from Mellon that we can do that, and so we're very excited about that kind of model. Anyway, that's kind of a distraction from the point of this talk, but I wanted to brag about it. If you read The New Yorker and some other national publications, you know, or think you do, that the humanities are dying, they're dying, and that it's our own fault. But if you take a look at the kinds of schools that The New Yorker and other national publications do not take a look at, you will see that they are thriving. You will see, if you look at regional comprehensives, small liberal arts, some community colleges, branch campuses, schools that recognize that they have to scramble to make programs work, that they have to innovate, that they have to meet their students' needs. Those schools are doing it. We have, at the MLA, tons of success stories of increases in enrollments in language and literature programs that don't make it into the news because they're not Harvard. The work that, and it's part of our job as a national association, and your other associations do this work as well, to provide the success stories and the templates and the toolkits for what's going well in other places and say, here's how you do it, to share that stuff. That's our job, not just to have a convention of research, although that's an important thing too, but to have a convention of research and professional development, to have stuff all year long, webinars and publications that support this kind of work. Anyway, we see those successes because we have professional development arms that reach out to chairs and program leaders in English and the languages. And so we're in constant touch with those folks. So we hear the stories and share the stories. We recently got a $1.5 million Mellon grant, yay us, to bring together successful stories, the success stories that we're hearing from programs all over the country in recruiting, retaining, and career readiness for students of color, first-generation college students, and Pell Grant recipients first, and lifting all boats as a result of the changes that these programs are able to make. So all of the stories that we told Mellon about when we were trying to pitch this program to get money, I sent them, an email. They had a meeting with us. They said, we want to have this meeting because the email you sent us, the schools that you talked about, the successes that you talked about, are not the ones we usually fund. These are not the schools we know about. And I said, that's right. We know about these other schools. We can funnel your money to places where you don't send it normally. Anyway, I'm very excited about that. So if you have ideas about programs that you want to try on a small grant, a $10,000 grant, if you see something that you think can really change recruitment, retention, or career readiness for your humanities students, get in touch. We haven't officially launched the application site, but pkrebs@mla.org, okay? Bringing students to undergraduate humanities by making clear the pathways to post-graduation opportunities is what makes the most sense. There's nothing wrong with students wanting to leave college ready to get a job and move forward in a career. For us in higher education humanities, many of us anxious not to participate in neoliberal university corporate politics, preparing workers for the grinding mills of capitalism, sometimes it's hard to step back and say, we love our students, we want them to be successful, let's think about how we can help them do that. When our students can make the connection between what they're learning in our classes and what they're going to be doing in the world after they leave us, I genuinely think that more people in this kind of anti-intellectual, anti-humanities culture we're participating in now will start to understand the value of the humanities. The more our students understand what the humanities has prepared them to do and how they're using it in their lives, the more they will talk about that, the more we can point to it, the more that we start to change the narrative about the worth of the humanities for life after graduation. We don't have to bow to the pressure to focus narrowly on one particular set of skills or, leading to a particular job. But given the student debt crisis and our students' lives, they're going to make a choice that has to do with what they can do after graduation. We have to make it easy for them to make the choice they want to make. Students of color, first-gen students, Pell Grant recipients, they need to be able to match their passion for the humanities, a passion that we can help develop in intro courses, to a path to success after graduation that includes both enrichment and employment. Both, nothing wrong with both. If you think about your own recent alums, you probably know how few of them entered directly into the humanities ecosystem, into jobs directly in the humanities. That sometimes they think that's what the humanities is, or sometimes people talk about the humanities as, well, it prepares you for a job at a museum or a theater or teaching English or French or Spanish. And we haven't provided necessarily the kind of, when I say we, I mean our admissions offices and our careers offices as well as us. And I think this really depends on good relations from beginning to end on campus, including the faculty in that swoop. Anyway, humanities jobs are great. I have a humanities job. It's a great job. And maybe the humanities grads who make the biggest difference are the ones who don't end up in humanities jobs. We heard from two powerful administrators with humanities backgrounds. They are not doing humanities jobs, but they are making a huge difference for the humanities and for the culture. I think students are going to get many different kinds of jobs. We know the story, change careers a million times, jobs that haven't been invented yet. But we have to kind of normalize uncertainty for them, make it okay for them in order for them not to pursue a narrow path, I think. Norton Publishing, of all people, is doing a really good job with this. If you ever look at their website, I've got links. They have a beautiful poster for English majors of a million different kinds of jobs that people get. They have websites with webinars about jobs from the humanities. Eric Hayo and his colleagues at Penn State have a series of posters called Humanities Works that you can print off and hand out. They're lovely too, challenging myths about humanities and employment. And most of y'all bring back young alums maybe to talk about their careers. We can do more than that, though, to keep from buying into the doomsday scenario that we keep hearing about. And in the 4-year colleges, they have to stop saying humanities can prepare you for anything. I doubt that that's as much a mantra in the two-year schools, but maybe it is. And be a little more specific about what kinds of pathways really are involved in the humanities. That our grant that we got from Mellon about linking recruitment to retention to career readiness is called Pathways, and it's not guided pathways. It's a but it is a pathway to employment. I mean, to full community participation. We're not afraid of saying that anymore. We're not. Okay. Let's look at some info from humanities indicators. This is a project of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences to help us understand. This is the humanities-related employment I was talking about. So maybe 3,800,000 people in humanities jobs. It's a drop in the bucket. That's not the jobs your students are going to get. But that's what they present as humanities jobs. But this helps you understand where humanities, and in my case, language and literature, students stand in relation to their peers. Humanities indicators data, unemployment rates, you see that? Business 3.7, Lang and Lit 3.7. When is anybody going to tell you that? You know, when's the last time you heard that statistic? Same unemployment rate as business, not as good as physics. Okay, we're not as good as physics. I refuse to acknowledge the difference between language and literature and history, but you can make, you can see that if you want. But my college at Bridgewater State, criminal justice was in my purview. And it was huge. It was huge because people understood it as a job. They thought it would lead to a job. In fact, it wasn't a cop shop, and it wasn't a good pre-law major. Students found themselves getting all kinds of interesting critical perspectives on the criminal justice system, but not necessarily job training. But their parents thought it sounded like a job. And I don't know whether this is the case for you all, but certainly at Wheaton and also at Bridgewater State, huge number of psychology majors. Because you can put IST at the end of that major and it sounds like a job, right? How many psychologists would you trust yourself to who had a bachelor's degree only, I mean, you are not a psychologist with a bachelor's degree in psychology. Despite the fact that psychologist is a word, okay? Perhaps even more significant, our students get better jobs. This is the underemployment rate. This is having a job in which you're employed less than full-time or in which you're not really using your skills in education. Self-defined, okay? English majors, 45% of them feel like they're underemployed. That's a sad number, but it's not as sad as biology. 51% underemployed. And 5 years beyond the first job, listen to this, 5 years beyond the first job, the underemployment probability for English majors is 29%, 5 years out. They are happily employed. 27% for language majors, okay? That is lower than all of those other majors. It's about the same as the probability for aggregated social and physical sciences, okay? Same as social and physical sciences. Take that. You don't see those numbers in the New Yorker. The data for that data is bachelor's degrees. They don't keep it for two-year colleges, but it's relevant for you. Because at either level, the path for humanities graduates is not a straightforward path. They find their way. They don't become Frenchists or Englishists. They go out and they do other things. They figure out what they're good at. They figure out what they like. And that's scary. It's scary for parents. It's scary for people with student debt, to think about not walking into a high-paying career. But the data for lifetime's earnings is good. The data I should have made a slide. The data for lifetime earnings for humanities majors is a little bit below the biology majors. But the job satisfaction is above. And that's important to think about as well. As you can see from those underemployment numbers, biology majors are not becoming biologists. It's not the clear path they think it is when they're getting pushed into STEM fields. Likewise, business. I don't know what a biblicist is, but business sounds employable, I know. States reinforce this message, of course. Look at Virginia's G3 program for its community colleges. Do you know this program? It meets last dollar need for students whose households are earning at or below 400% of the federal poverty level. So that's a generous program. So if your family is earning $120,000 for a family of 4, you're eligible for this program to meet last dollar need. But it only meets that need for students in healthcare, manufacturing and skilled trades, information technology, public safety, and early childhood education programs. Okay. So that's a community college program in Virginia only supporting those majors. The state decides what degree programs lead directly to jobs, and it funds them. So let's talk for a second about jobs in healthcare and who gets jobs in healthcare. Let's talk a little bit about infotech and who gets jobs in infotech and why the state maybe shouldn't be the ones who decide that. Maybe employers could decide that. So I'm gonna tell you a story. Once when I was a dean at Bridgewater State, I was in my office and I saw the dean of business and the dean of science, both white guys, getting into a car, and I went out and I said, where are you guys going? So they didn't hang out together that much. And they said, oh, we're going to Cisco Systems. I said, what are you doing up there? He said, oh, we're going to talk to recruiters up there. And I said, well, why didn't you invite me? And they're like, we didn't think you'd be interested. And I said, move over, So I got in the car and I went with them. Much to my assistant's surprise. So I went with them, and we got there, and the guy who's a Bridgewater alum, and he's telling us all about the training program for, what Cisco Systems is? Network engineering, right? So I said, so what are you looking for in people for these network engineering jobs? And he said, well, we need people who, when they are called and told there's a problem, they know how to ask questions and keep asking questions until they isolate what the issue might be, and then try a solution, keep asking more questions, and try different solutions until they solve the problem. I said, wow, that's really interesting set of job qualifications. You're talking about your entering class of engineers, this 50-student training class. I said, you talk about them as engineers. Are they all engineering majors? He said, no, they're all kinds of majors. And I said, well, do you have any humanities majors? And he said, what's that? Right? And so I told him, and he said, oh, sure. We have Spanish majors and philosophy. Yeah, we have all kinds of people. I said, when you go to campus and you are advertising jobs for network engineers, you are missing out on half of your most qualified applicants because they are never going to look at a job for a network engineer and think somehow they would be qualified for it. But yet you have just described a job they can do and do well, and you have people doing well at it. How they found it, I do not know. But that made me realize when I got the job at the MLA, whenever I did a campus visit, I needed to talk to the career services office as well. I needed to talk to them about how do you advertise these jobs? How do you make clear, first of all, do you understand what a humanities major is and can do? And second of all, do you really know what these jobs are? And are you letting the employers decide the column they get listed in? Anyway, another even shorter story. When I was at Bridgewater State, I got a bunch of people from South Coast Health, big healthcare conglomerate in the area, together with a bunch of humanities faculty members from Bridgewater State. And I just had the Bridgewater State faculty describe the things that they said they were cultivating in their students. And then I had these directors of units of this healthcare conglomerate talk about what they were looking for in entry-level positions. And both sides were shocked by each other. You know, I remember one of the personnel people from South Coast saying, "That's what philosophy majors learn?" You know? And then people from, you know, the English department or whatever saying, "You have entry-level jobs that don't, you know, that don't say what degree they need?" And they're talking about patient advocacy jobs and jobs dealing with insurance companies and all kinds of different jobs using communication skills, critical analysis skills. They wanted a bachelor's degree because they wanted somebody who could show they could stick out a program. They knew how to read and write. They knew how to do research. They didn't actually care what the degree was in. And everybody in the English department thought if you were going to work for a healthcare company, you had to wield a scalpel. It's, you know, it was really, so here you have Virginia only funding because they mistakenly think they're helping the healthcare industries, you know, by training more, I don't know, you know, x-ray techs or phlebotomists or something, when in fact they need a range of different kinds of students with different kinds of skills. And we're not talking to each other about that. Anyway, students from all kinds of majors are going to have winding paths. Our job is to prepare them for the first few steps. Give them things that will serve them in good stead all the way through, but also help them to those first couple of steps. We're not necessarily doing that in the humanities right now. Ph.D.s in the humanities have been PhDs in the humanities. That's what they've done, you know. Very few of them have been sports writers, you know. Very few of them, I was a sports writer. You know, very few of them have done other kinds of jobs. And they're afraid of the concept of entry-level. Their entry-level job was assistant professor for them. So they don't understand what an entry-level job is or how to help students understand a first job as a first job. It's okay, you know, chair of the French department, if your star student starts off as a manager of a CVS, because there are many, many career possibilities in that company and in that industry and other industries that job will help that person get. And CVS wants bachelor's degree recipients for that first job, as does Enterprise Rent-A-Car. You know who these folks are. But humanities faculty are not trained to feel okay about that. We are taught to create little mini-me's lots of times. You less than four-year faculty, because you understand your students a little bit better. We don't have to become career counselors. I'm not arguing for that. I'm not saying that we have to learn how to, you know, help students get that first job. I'm just saying there are things we could do a little bit differently in the classroom that help students understand what we're giving them and what they're learning from us and what they're developing in our classes. When I got a group of faculty and administrators and employers together when I was at Bridgewater, I also did my day job, but I did a lot of other things too. So I got these people together and we said, all right, how are we going to name, measure, and document the stuff that our students are getting in the humanities. How are we going to do that? We all talk together, people from all kinds of, from Bristol and Massasoit community colleges, from, Stonehill, University, which is a Catholic school, and Wheaton, which is a private liberal arts, and all and Bridgewater, UMass Dartmouth, Cape Cod Community College. And we decided that each school tried to figure out a different approach to it. And three of us, Wheaton, Bridgewater, and Bristol Community College, did an experiment where we went back, faculty members from those institutions decided that the last week of the semester, they were going to take 20 minutes at the whiteboard at the end of last week of the semester, and ask the students to name all the things they learned that were not content matter from the course. All the things they either learned to do or ways they changed their thinking or, and the faculty member was not allowed to intervene, just write things down. And then they all took pictures of their whiteboards and we all got back together again to talk about it. And the three different kinds of institutions had different results, and it was really fascinating. And at the community college, the faculty member said, I had students say, I learned how important it was to read the textbook. I learned it was important to show up for class every day, as well as, I learned how to do X or Y. And in each case, faculty members saw things on the board they had not realized they were teaching. And so they could put that into their learning outcomes for the future and develop it and be specific about it. Okay, you learned how to, multi-stage a project or work in a group or use data in a narrative presentation or, whatever, thing they learned. And they could make new student learning outcomes out of it, out of what they saw. But they also many of them thought they were teaching some things that didn't show up on the board, and that was important for them to see as well. Are we teaching them to do research? Are we teaching them to synthesize many sources? Are we teaching them to weigh the value of conflicting information? To tolerate ambiguity, as I said before, to work in groups, present information on paper, aloud, with graphics, online, make arguments backed up by credible sources, tell when a source is a credible source, information literacy. All of these things we know we're teaching, but do they know they're learning? Have we named them and documented them? Can they point to something that shows they know how to do this, they learned how to do this? We talk at the MLA not just about skills, but about skills, values, and perspectives. All three from the humanities. Skills, values, and perspectives that students get from courses. I never talk just about skills. It's dangerous, feeds a bad narrative. Skills are always framed in a bigger way. That community college daily piece said, rarely is there an opportunity for a simple policy change to create a win-win-win by benefiting multiple stakeholder groups at the same time. Yet advocates say this is the case with skills-based hiring, which focuses on the actual skills and qualifications somebody brings to the job instead of just the degree they've earned. Now, that sounds really worthy and good, but you really have to unpack it, and you really have to think about what skills they mean and what a degree really means. Saying rather than just the degree they've earned, let's think about what that degree is made up of, how it's scaffolded, what the pieces are. Obviously, given what I've been saying, I agree with it, but and I would say that Cisco, you don't want to focus on the degree they've earned. You want to focus on skills. But I don't think skills means, it's like, I do not think that word means what you think it means, okay. We can't be seen as frills, but I don't think we have to narrowly be seen as skills either. That's the ground we have to navigate. We have to stand up for the importance of writing, research, communication, critical thinking, in short, for the education that the humanities offers in how to make sense of the world around us. because that's the framework we're talking about, how to make sense of the world around us, not just how to do a job. There's a lot we can do both in advising and in regular coursework to help our students see pathways that arise directly from their majors. We have material to help at the MLA. National Humanities Alliance has a ton of stuff on their studythehumanities.org site. It's a great site. Norton Publishing has stuff. We're not starting from scratch with this stuff. People have been working on it. If we make it clear to our students how prepared they can be with a humanities background for entering careers, if we articulate those skills, values, and perspectives, then we're preparing them to talk to employers about who they are and what they bring, not just, what particular thing they can do. If we make clear to our students on workforce preparation tracks that their humanities courses are part of their preparation for life and not an obstacle to be overcome on the way, to the technical courses that they really want to take. That's the tough area to navigate. We make clear to them how the whole degree prepares them for careers and a lifetime and not just that first job. Because the students don't want just the first job, though they may say they do. I mean, they want self-respect. They want to feel ready for, making meaningful contributions. Our courses give them the skills and the values and perspectives to make sense of the world and to participate in careers. If we can name why the humanities is central to our lives and the ways we look at the world, the way we understand the world, and if all of our students can do that, I do think we can change the national narrative, and people will find it harder and harder to leave the humanities out of the conversation. Winding down, our communities, our states, our nation, and our world need the humanities desperately. We need more commitment to studying languages and literature, to learning how to tolerate ambiguity, to tell legitimate from illegitimate sources, to write clearly and concisely, to see the world from different points of view, especially through both language and culture. The message I want to leave you with is one of hope and a little bit of joy, I think. The work you're doing changes students' thinking, it changes their futures, changes their lives and the lives they touch. It's part of workforce preparation. It's part of parenting preparation. It's part of community membership preparation. Thank you for the work you're doing to support the humanities in everybody's education. Your students need the humanities, the country needs the humanities. And at community colleges where humanities enrollments, unlike other sectors, actually are growing still, they're thriving. At regional public, small private, and religiously affiliated schools, humanities programs are adapting to meet the needs of students, to connect their courses with students' lives after graduation. That's what's key. When programs make that connection, they thrive. You've always done that at community colleges. Thank you for showing the way. Anybody want any questions? Want to ask questions? I'm here all day, and into the evening. Literally, I am at your disposal. So I'm happy to talk privately with anybody, because sometimes it can be hard in a setting like this. But there is a mic if anybody wants to ask a question, though I know we're... Okay. It's fine. You can just come and see me. As I said, I'll be here. Thanks. Okay.
Thanks for your remarks. I'm Michael Klein, very proud member of the Board of Trustees of the Council for the Humanities. And And this is a great event, really following on the event that we had, as Aaron mentioned, right before the pandemic. I try not to make a connection between those two events. But my question to you, for very inspiring talk, I really appreciate it. I am concerned about a trend in state governments where, while you were talking, I wrote down 4 that I could find online really quick: Maryland, Pennsylvania, Alaska, Utah. I think in the name of equity and egalitarianism are saying that their state government jobs no longer are going to be advertised as requiring any kind of a college degree. You're the first person I can think of in a position to talk to governors to say, maybe that's not such a great idea, or, both and. Don't eliminate it. I'm really concerned about this. I work in state government, and, my degree, it's your description of the Cisco system and answering the phone in the governor's constituent relations office, asking a question till you can figure out what that person needs that's calling and direct them to the right state department. It's critical. So I just wonder what you think about that, if there's a solution, and do you have hotline numbers for all 50 governors?
I wish I did. No, but that is, it's something for sure that we should take up, and not only, because you're right that critiques of the humanities have spilled out into critiques of higher education in general, that who needs higher education. And I actually believe that those critiques are really centered in wanting to attack the ability to think hard about our own national history and our own, national, the reckoning we need to do around race, I feel like attacks on higher education are attacks on critical thinking, and I can think of approaches to take with governors, and I will think about that. But I think employers, probably we could roll out major employers against that, so that if Cisco Systems feels it's important to have a bachelor's degree, even though the skills they need are not encoded in particular courses at a college, there's a reason why they want the bachelor's degree. If we in the professional, the disciplinary associations, AAC&U does a lot of this work, get employers to name why it's important to have that kind of training, if states listen to private enterprise in a way they don't listen to me. And I think that would be the way to approach that. Yeah, here's one over here. That's all right, there's people in the back.
There we go. I just had a question. You're saying that large companies are looking, for diversified background. They're not specifically looking for a biologist or an economist. But how do we offset that with all resumes going through AIs?
That's a problem. That is a real problem. And that's something that we have a task force on AI at the moment that is gonna try to take that up, because you're right. You apply for something and you don't say the right word, hit the right credential. A human being never sees your resume. You are absolutely right. I have no answer to that. That's something that we recognize that absolutely needs to be worked on. No, that is a scary, scary idea. Yeah, so that you can write the best cover letter in the world, and nobody will ever read that cover letter because you're and the government is the first place that started that. I know from having applied for government jobs how that's been in play for a long time. No, you're absolutely right. Anybody else? We could talk forever about AI.
We'll do that another day, though, for sure.
We have something planned. Stay tuned.
Yeah. All right.
Any other questions? Yeah? No? All right. Thank you again, Paula, so much.